And I guess another person who I guess future is a little bit up in the air with this team is Allen Robinson. And I will say this, in the game against the Packers, he
Yeah.
was a little bit more involved, especially right off from the bat. I love that Justin Fields found him on his the third completed pass of his first drive. Started out 3 for 3. Was definitely one of the better looking parts of the game for the Bears. But there's still a little bit of lack of involvement from him. You'd still like to see him get featured more. The numbers are just extremely low from a statistical standpoint, and sometimes you kind of lose him in the game. You kind of just you can't find him. He's not very involved. He has been doing a good job blocking from time to time, and like I said, he hasn't completely disappeared, but how can the Bears get him, into the game more? Is it something they're doing, as far as passing wise? Do they need to be looking for him more in intermediate routes? I know they made a little bit of Justin Fields not seeing him on a deep play, and then some people say that Allen Robinson gave up. So there's a little bit of back and forth there. And what impact could that possibly have on his upcoming contract status, or if it keeps going wrong for the Bears, are we looking to trade him?
Well, all right, there's a lot there to unpack. I think
I laid it all
when you
out for
watch
you.
that, yeah. I think when you watch that last game, it's pretty hard to argue against the fact that Fields completely missed Allen Robinson for like
Yeah.
a really deep pass, and it was a beautiful. I mean, he was wide open. You could have
Touchdown
lofted that
for
out
sure.
there, touchdown, no problem. And the thing is, it didn't even really need to be all that accurate. You could have just kind of heaved it up there. He had so much space to work with. He could have come back for the ball, Really, he could. I mean, he could have thrown it behind him, and he could have stopped in his tracks, turned around, and probably still grabbed it. So Fields, for all the talent he has, all his natural ability, he still is making some kind of bad reads, not having the best vision downfield. He's obviously I think the best quarterback we have at the moment, but he's going through some growing pains, and that just is what it is. And we shouldn't rip into him too hard yet. He's just a rookie. He's 22. He's got a long way to go. He's got a lot of room to grow. But you get a star like Robinson, and he's looking for somebody that's going to find him every play.
Right.
You look at someone like Antonio Brown. Sometimes these big receivers kind of blow up, and they kind of get, and understandably so. Their whole career hinges on how well the quarterback can find them. When they're open and they're flailing their arms, I think they get a little tired of that. So, I think that Robinson's doing enough to get open, and he's winning matchups. I think that we're not seeing him show up because I think Fields isn't finding him. I think that there's a lot of plays where if we were able to go back and watch the tape and do it the way that the team itself can do, we'd see that Robinson had more than enough opportunities to really get some completions and change the game. But he's just not being found. And even some of the catches he made, one of them was like this really, really tough. I mean, like it really showed his skill. The little toe tap he got. I think that was the one you were mentioning.
Yeah, just early in the game, like their first
it was
series.
beautiful, and it was a great throw. But I mean, like only top 5 receivers can make that kind of
Okay.
can make that kind of a catch. And it takes a lot of body control, a lot of skill to get that toe touch. So it's not like the talent's there. I don't think it's any sort of a drop off. I just think him being found by Fields is really going to be what's required to get him his stats up. In terms of his contract or him being here next year, I just don't see it happening anymore. I think that he's gonna enter free agency, and he's going to, on the one hand, you think he'll probably go to the highest bidder. I think Robinson's the kind of guy who is also looking for a ring, and he's probably looking at teams that even, if he's on maybe a shorter contract, but a winning team, a team that he thinks gives him a chance to actually go to the Super Bowl. And, for a guy in his prime, I think a top 5 receiver, I don't think that a 500 Bears team is very enticing. And we can come up with our numbers, but I think we sort of missed the boat last year by not extending him and not offering him the kind of money he was demanding. And we're just going to have to live with the consequences, because unless we trade him this year, which I think the Bears fan base is going to be very, very upset about, because we don't have quite enough depth in the receiving room to sort of get away with that while still pretending like we're being competitive. I think we're just going to hang on to him this year, and we're going to just let him go in free agency. And I don't think we're going to get anything for him, which is kind of a shame, because, on the one hand, if we kind of admit who we really are this year, we should be able to come away with a couple draft picks, and we should probably trade him. I mean, in all likelihood, we should. There's projections right now that are pretty much what we guessed, that the Bears will be about 500. Some think optimistically we'll go 9-8, and more realistically it'll be like 7-9, or 7 and whatever
10,
yeah.
which seems so weird to say.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe we squeeze into that wild card slot, but like, is it worth it? Should we hang on to these assets that we could trade away for future draft capital, just so that we can have a first round exit again, or a wild card exit? I don't know. Like, if that's what you guys want. But I don't know.
The McCaskies are thinking, well, as long as it's a home wild card game, then yeah.
Exactly. As long as we get one more week of advertising revenue and merchandise. Yeah. Great. Well, good job, McCaskies.
In reality, the Bears are kind of trending down the path we thought they were. And if they keep going down that path, then the logical thing is to trade him. Now, of course, he's someone that you'd attribute to possibly being the team, or not possibly, is the team's top receiver. I know Mooney is getting a lot of the attention right now, but, Robinson is still obviously the WR1. But you are able to move someone like him and get draft capital in a year where the Bears do not have much draft capital. So logically, you should move him. But, then again, he's there for Justin Fields. I think that's probably one of the leading reasons why they brought him back on a tag anyway. Because realistically, they should either extended him to a contract last year or traded him. He was probably at peak value. Right now, his value is not going to be quite the same as it was. Even though a lot of teams can probably see the potential, they're going to say, well, where's he been this year? It just naturally brings the value of him down a little bit. But, I think that looking at where we are today, which is kind of where you started out, Zach, I think that in a certain extent, Fields isn't finding him. And we talked about how curious that is a little while back by basically saying that it's all who Mitchell Trubisky went to. Actually, that pod was never released. So on that unreleased pod, we talked about how it was just ironic that Justin Fields does not pass it to Robinson much, and he was all that Trubisky would pass to. I'm sure a little bit of that probably just comes into getting Allen Robinson into Justin Fields' comfort zones a little bit more. I think the reason why Mooney is being so successful right now is because a lot of times he's just cutting right across the field. You notice the plays where he gets touchdowns. He's in the middle of the field, making a quick break and getting open quickly. It's just an easy read for Fields to go right to him. So maybe we need to keep, in order to keep that rotation up and, keep spreading the ball around, but get a little bit more ball time for Allen Robinson, is to just make things a little bit more simplistic, get him to where Justin Fields wants him to be. And, we'll see how the future for him plays out. I mean, if we're looking at another loss in Tampa Bay, and if the Bears go on a little bit of a skid or something like that, then I'm sure that this is going to get tossed around a little bit more. We're getting on this a little bit preemptively before we get to the deadline, but I'm sure as the deadline looms around and if the Bears are in a similar position, we're going to be having a little bit deeper of a discussion on this.